Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Param Om Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste Om Ishvara, verse 27, whatever being, moving or stationary is born, know that to be out of the union of Purusha and Prakriti, or Arjuna, k.etram and k.etrajña, using the language of those 5 questions that Arjuna presented to Krishna, which gave rise to this chapter 13. In the previous 2 verses, Krishna was pointing out the stages of sadhanas. We have seen it beautifully elaborated by Swamiji. The purification of the mind is going to be attained through these 5 levels of 5 stages of sadhanas. And there are many, many different activities that begin even before one becomes Karma Yogi, for example. So you can do just rituals, pujas, japas, social service outside of the context of Vedantic Karma Yoga. Anything is helping, is moving the person towards the recognition of God principle. So howsoever, from wherever we begin, at the end, we all going to go and stand before the door of Atma Vichara and Atma Jnana. There is only one door, many paths to prepare, one path for gaining moksha, meaning to say one path to get for gaining self-knowledge and moksha. Yesterday I mentioned a little bit, this is a question that is coming up to me more strongly lately, and I'm going to give a call to Swamiji one of these days to talk about this, because Atma Vichara and Atma Jnana is the only way to remove self-ignorance or ignorance in regards to the true nature reality as Brahman, as God. In other words, God realization is only possible through knowledge. But there are other schools or paths that suggest that God realization is gained through devotion. And devotion and jnana, to me, it's become more and more clear as the 2 sides or the 2 wings of the same bird. You need to have both, because jnana may be there, but if this perception of God, which brings a sense of fulfillment to the soul and appreciation and gratitude and love and reverence, and is what produce love, and I'm not talking about human love, human to human love, but love for life, for God, and so on. So some schools would say that knowledge is the most important. Some others are going to say devotion is the most important. Vedanta has no problem with either concepts, because Vedanta says that devotion has to be permeating all these different stages of spiritual sadhanas. Devotion must be there. Yes, Lynn?
I remember Swami Paramarthananda saying, excuse me, that upasana without jnanam is incomplete, and jnanam without upasana is impossible.
Definitely. Yeah. So it's but we are saying something more here, because jnana without devotion is impossible. As he says, Yin Yoga without Karma Yoga is impossible. It may give us the impression that you need Karma Yoga or devotion only to the point of beginning Yin Yoga, But the path of self-inquiry requires tremendous devotion, dedication, and surrender, and all of that goes with devotion. And the ego, the ahamkara, cannot make it happen unless it somehow it surrenders itself at the altar of the Lord, to get this atma, jnana, the recognition of the nature of God within oneself, now as permeating everything and so on. So devotion is not something separate from self-inquiry, So Ramana Maharaj here and there used to suggest that jnana, devotion is going to conduce a person into jnana. And if you begin with jnana, it's going to conduce you into devotion to the extent that Atma Vichara, is going to purify the mind to the extent that the person may begin sensing and feeling the presence of God all over. You understand? So this sensitivity, which allows someone to see Brahman everything, is something that requires not only a good intellect and a good Viveka Shakti, but a heart that's purified to an extent that one finally sees it without seeing with the eyes. It's a perception that happens in the so-called spiritual heart of the individual, and that is freedom, that is love, that is more like the fragrance of self-knowledge, the pollen, the fruits of self-knowledge. It's become more and more clear to me is the love towards Brahman, towards God, towards the Atma, towards the self. You understand? And it's not a dualistic love. It's just seeing Brahman as everything as resting within Brahman, the only reality, and then the Nama-rupas are there, but the individual is sensing and seeing, not with the eyes, but with the eyes of wisdom, seeing that all is Brahman. It becomes something that is experienced. Brahman is not an object of experience, and for the Jnana Yogis, it's also said that Brahman is not an object of knowledge either, because you cannot know Brahman, but you can develop a certain refinement or sensibility or purification or howsoever, so that you're going to know Brahman as one's intrinsic nature, true intrinsic nature, and the nature of everything is this Satchit, conscious existence. So how are you going to know Brahman? Through devotion. It begins a dualistic devotion. Through Jnana Yoga, it begins as a dualistic knowing Brahman through Jnana Yoga, through knowledge, But in the end, the direct knowledge, it's something that requires both devotion and the cognitive power of the intellect to understand, discern the invisible from the visible, and so on. So that's where I am. As for 10 years, I have been hammering that only knowledge, only knowledge, only knowledge. And now I begin understanding some pointers of Ramana Maharaj, which somehow embrace devotion as well. And the fact that he says that if you have a devotional temperament, you're going to be a devotee in duality, And that may take you to the collapse of that duality. And that is only possible through self-recognition, recognize God as one's very nature. That can only be gained through removal of this divider, this division between myself and God somewhere out there in the skies, or even, here and there, but still I see God as something manifest everywhere, but I have a hard time to recognize as my very Atma, my very self, my very true essential nature. So if you begin as a devotee, you're going to be a devotee in duality, but that devotion should become a non-dual devotion. And then that is going to culminate in self-knowledge, self-recognition, or God recognition, God realization, self-realization, which is to know Brahmana as one's very intrinsic nature, the nature of everything, as one's true identity / nature. No? As we know, we need the intellect to remove this ignorance, because the ignorance, it did settle itself within the intellect. The intellect is so sure that he is the mind, the thoughts, the emotions, and the physical body. So it is a sort of knowledge, wrong knowledge, painful knowledge. It is in the intellect. So we need to address the intellect. Because if we are just a devotee, experience these wonderful states of love towards God, we may still do not assimilate the fact that God is our very nature, So I'm devoted to the self, I am devoted to Brahman as Brahman, and Brahman is the only reality. It pervades everything and so on. That has to be felt and experienced. Although Brahman is not an object of experience, but through the eyes of wisdom, we get to recognize this Brahman in non-duality, as the essential nature of everything. And then what is the experience? You're not experiencing Brahman, you're experiencing the world from Aham Brahmasmi. Everything is Brahman, everything is God. This is all superimpositions upon God, the only reality, consciousness, the only reality, and so on. So we need both elements, a purified heart and a very sharp intellect, so to put in different terms. So we say that is a fact that ignorance can only be removed by knowledge. This ignorance is hardwired. It's so intriguing the way every human being somehow very soon after a few years develops this mistaken, error identification. I, the body, mind. I, the body, especially in the beginning. So the society around the individual is going to start saying you're the body, you're the body, you're the body, before the child has some cognition or understanding about itself. And then it's a strong program coming from many lifetimes, and then this original error gets crystallized. And that's why it's so difficult to uproot and kill this ignorance. And this ignorance requires knowledge, of course. I am of the nature of Purusha, consciousness. My body-mind is Prakriti, is subject to time, space, and all kinds of limitations. We don't have, and then there is another sentence that I remember here. It's not really what's being said here. Is like we don't have an experience problem. We have an ignorance problem. Okay, So a lot of the people not understand the rule of self-inquiry and self-knowledge. They believe that they need to to have an experience of God, experience of the self. Yeah. So the way I'm experiencing myself and the world, it's painful, it hurts. So I need to have a transcendental experience. I need to experience Brahman. I need to experience this and that. So Vedanta here and there, some of our Mahatmas would say that we don't have an experience problem. We have an ignorance problem because fundamentally our experience of the world is going to be transformed only to the extent that we remove the fundamental problem, which is the firm conviction that we are the body, mind, sense complex. And then our fundamental problem is not an experience of pain and suffering. Our fundamental problem is an ignorance problem. So I'm saying this is the ignorance problem, and this ignorance is the error. We do not know. I am the invisible, most subtle, the subtle Purusha. And I had somehow to define myself because when we come to the aham conscious thought, immediate this aham, the first thing is to know what you are, of course. So nobody can say I without somehow having this natural impulse to define yourself so that you can define other, the world, idam. Now aham needs to define itself before it can get an understanding and definitions about what is out there. So this ignorance is such that it's absolutely incapable of perceiving God, perceiving the self, the Atma, and identify itself as its true nature. It's basically impossible. Ramana somehow got that at the age of 16, 17, but it's very rare, yeah? Especially at such an early age. So when we do not know the self, I mistake myself to be the body. In the language of Swami Shimaya, the non-appreciation that I am the Atma, the self, produce the misappreciation I am the body, you know. The non-appreciation, I am the self, I am Purusha, produce a mistaken definition, appreciation, the mistaken apprehension. That's the words of Sima. The mistaken apprehension of my true nature as Purusha produce, you know, the what's the word again? What's the word I just used?
Misapprehension.
Yeah, apprehension. The non-apprehension of my true nature as Purusha produce a misapprehension. I am the body. I am Prakriti.
Yeah.
The body mind. Mind is also matter, as we know, also Prakriti. And we have it again, the parallel of the three states. In the dream state, it happens as well. When we begin dreaming, we forget that we are the Vishwa, the awaker. No? What is the awaker here? What is my body? You know, and then the non apprehension of my physical body compels me to take my subtle body to be myself. So one is going to identify with the subtle body in the absence of the physical body. So the whole key here is how to apprehend our true nature, perceive and apprehend and understand and own our true nature as consciousness, considering that is the most invisible and the most subtle and not available towards the five senses and the mind. you know. So we need to have a different pramana, means by which we're going to apprehend our true nature, perceive and honor our true nature. And this pramana is said to be the revealed teachings received by the rishis. So the body is lying there in bed, and the dreamer takes the other body in the absence of the physical one. But the moment the dreamer wakes up, immediately it takes up the physical body automatically. Nidra Shakti is doing all of that. Therefore, Purusha Ajnana has led to Prakriti Abhimanan. So the ignorance of my nature's Purusha has led to Prakriti identification. Identify with my physical body. In other English language, the self-ignorance has led to body identification. So how to identify oneself as spirit, as the self, as consciousness, is the process by which it's the spiritual process. So regardless of which guru, which path, every serious, real spiritual journey is a journey to discover one's true nature, true identity. You understand? And how to discover one's true identity, nature. We begin usually by making it clear that I'm not the body and the mind, because that is something unreal, because it appears, disappears, it changes from moment to moment, and so on. And there is something within me that witness the changing world, the changing mind, the changing body. I cannot see that myself, the seer, and that which I witness and see. So we begin like that. Some other schools more around devotion will say, begin by loving God. Love God, love God, love God. Try to understand God, love, dedicate your life to God, and this and that. And then in this way, maybe not, one day, you understand that God is not something apart from your true nature. Is consciousness, your very nature, conscious existence. And that is the final knowledge. Okay. The body, the k.etram, means identification, mistaken. In English, self-mistaken means what? You miss the original, you take the superimposed one, let's say. So you miss the original self, original consciousness, the same way we miss the screen when we're going to watch a movie. We miss the paper when we are reading the newspaper, like in the old days. So you're going to miss the consciousness, and you're going to take the superimposition produced by Prakriti, Maya's power to project Prakriti. Therefore, I miss the Purusha and I take the Prakriti, the superimposition, I, the Jiva, the entire universe, and Ishvara, the creator. Those are superimpositions upon Purusha, the true nature of Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagata. Jesus called k.etrajña, k.etra samyoga, atyama anachama abhyasaha. Shankaracharya wrote most famous introduction to Brahma Sutra. He writes, Bhasyan called a text called Adhyasa Bhasyan. It's 1.5 page, but commentators have made several books. So it's just a proper discrimination, I would imagine, you know. Before you are making error, you are confusing, you know, k.etrajña, and that is mistake. So you take the superimposition and you miss the real uh, substratum, okay, the true nature, the spirit. So this is a mistake. No, he wrote an entire body of a page and a half that became several volumes developed by commentators, Brahma Sutras, on this mistake, confusion between kshetra and k.etrajña and purusha and prakriti, consciousness and the body-mind. If I make this mistake, I take that which is more tangible, visible, because it's more gross. I mean, it's gross, and consciousness has no density at all because it has no gunas involved to with it, within it. So if I make this mistake, I take myself to be the material body. The material body brings a lot of problems. One of them is the mortality, you know? So everybody lives from within this subconscious mantra. Let's say, aham body mind is me, aham body mind is me. We are born out of this mistake identification. We take our material body mind to be the real self. And due to this mistaken identification, which is the identification with the ahamkara, there are other twofold problems. The first one is, so I, as the immortal Purusha, I took my Prakriti nature, which the body, which is mortal. So I, the immortal, I mistake my mortal body to be my true self. And most of human beings never even heard this concept that our true nature is immortal, is eternal consciousness, pure consciousness. Most people never heard even, and some people heard that, did not pay much attention. Some people heard that and left. Some other people heard that and dwelled a little bit upon this and later on just gave up because, you know, if everybody makes the same mistake of I am my Prakriti body, so why I'm going to try to live differently, you know? So my mortal nature I take to be myself, my finite nature I take to be myself. And then we live bound by this mistaken, insulting notions about ourselves. And then when once finitude comes, I cannot withstand the limitations in life. So once the old age and illness comes, and then people start crying. I don't know if that's what he's trying to say. But even when we grow as a young man and this and that, we begin seeing that this body mind is not only growing and begin aging, presenting the facts on the physical level, but also there are all kinds of limitations. And then we tend to start the grabbing project, as Swamiji is saying here. We go around trying to possess things around us. Subconscious is believing that I can develop a sense of security, satisfaction, happiness, because having so many things and people and associations around me minimize the sense of limitations. So how am I going to do with limitation? I can't stand limitation. I grab things. I'm going to lean on things, trying to resolve the problem of the ahamkara dealing or facing its limitations. Everybody does that subconsciously. As a desire to get rid of finitude and limitation, we want to restore a sense of limitlessness. Not knowing how to do that, we try to do that by uh, associating and grabbing things to be called mine. Ahamkara, mamakara. That gives a sense of security. Therefore, apurnatva leads to karma. Karma leads to karma. Karma leads to punyapapa. Punyapapa leads to sukha-dukkha, and later on to a new birth. In fact, entire cycle of birth and death is deha abhimana. Yeah. Deha abhimana means identification with the false ego. There are some other definitions as well. So we feel our ahamkara, the body mind, to be very, very incomplete, small, and full of desires, seeking and searching, hoping for a sense of completion, plenitude, and so on. So the moment that we feel that, we're going to begin producing desires, desires that could maybe take care of this apurnatva, this sense that I am incomplete, I'm empty, something is missing here. Yeah. So we start having desire. The desires, they are all based on this desire to compensate or to resolve the problem of apurnatva. So these desires, these thoughts are going to move the individual into action. The actions are going to produce results. Results are going to be punya and papa. Punya papa is going to lead to experience pleasures and pains. And, and this body of punya papa is going to produce another birth. All because we have identified with the ahamkara, the imposter, identified with the body mind, who believes to be the doer, not the witnessing consciousness, but the doer, the experiencer, the thinker, the knower. Therefore, Krishna says, Sattvam means living being. Every living being is born, goes through the cycles of birth and death. All beings. It's interesting here, Swami, this says that trees, they go through the same process. So maybe in the mind of a tree, subconscious, the mind, what is the first desire a tree must have? I want to move. It's not fair. I see so many other moving beings, and I'm here stuck on my roots on the ground. So a tree may get a birth as a moving creature, and then moving creatures, animals, may get birth as something that they are envy about, some better animals. So moving and non-moving beings, everything that's born must die. It's all manifestations of the Prakriti appearing as living beings, jivas from different realms. And it's said that there is a scale by which one wish to have a better body. But the point is, when we come to the human birth, which is said to be the highest, because it's only through this human birth we may begin or become conscious that every birth I have is an opportunity and a search, a desire to experience my Punatvan nature. Everybody is full, whole, and complete as consciousness. And only the human mind are going to consciously develop this desire. There is something wrong here. I got already this human birth. I still continue to experience lots of limitations, a little less limitations than some animals and plants, but yet I did not take care of the Apunatvan feeling. Yeah? Therefore, Krishna says, Yavat Sattvam Sankayate. Sattva means living beings. Every one of these living creatures goes through birth and death, whether they move or not. And all this fundamental, all of that is based on the fundamental mistake. I am my Prakriti nature. Of course, the tree does not have a conscious thought, such as a human being coming in contact with the scriptures may understand the mistake, may understand the error, and say, I'm suffering because I mistake my Prakriti nature to be my true self. I am the body is the fundamental mistake. This is the mistake, the error that is born out of ignorance and produce suffering. But there will be some punya papa. Yes, but this punya is just something. It's just a little, uh, fleeting moments in which you say like, no, it's okay. Now I feel good. Okay. But underneath there is this sense of incompletion. So the fundamental error must be removed or eliminated. We can only attack this error directly. Now, he's saying you can never attack this error directly. You have to attack the cause of the error, of course. So, oh no, I am the body-mind sense complex. Okay, I know a special tea. No, it's not like that. Oh, I'm suffering so much emotional pain, mental pain, and this and that. Okay, let me give you a massage. Okay, let me give you some food recipes, some tea or some homeopathic medicine is going to remove, do this posture, do this. So we cannot attack this sense of incompletion, this chronic dissatisfaction with one's life directly. It means to say you need to address it directly on its root. So you're going to deal with the pain and the suffering, but not directly. Leave it there. Oh, you're suffering. That's okay. No problem. You just need to understand that you are not the body mind who is suffering. Ramana used to say that again and again. Anything you see, who is suffering, who is having doubts, who is this, try to understand what you are, who you are, and so on. So Ramana was never dealing with human suffering. He was just trying to reveal to people that the ahamkara is not real. There is no I who says I'm enjoying and I'm suffering. It's there is only consciousness. The cause is ajnana, and the root of this suffering is ajnana. So you have to address it at its root. So here we have a analogy saying if you want to destroy a tree, nowadays you cannot use these analogies, because trees are very important. We have cut enough trees in the planet, So, but we can say like you have a tree and the tree is ill. There are some illness that are showing on the leaves and in the fruits. So you're not going to treat the illness of the tree on the leaves, on its fruits. So you're going to understand now it's something that is missing on the soil. Some nutrients are missing. Okay, or these are some other problems, unbalanced so you want to not treat leaf by leaf. You try to treat the tree on a more fundamental level. So allopathy is trying to take care of the human health by addressing its symptoms. That's why I'm not very fond of allopathy. So some other medicines or practice try to address more the cause. Swami says as well, the ideal medicine is that which tries to address the disease, not the symptoms of the disease. We have the story of Ravana, Vadam. Rama destroyed the heads of Ravana. The heads indicate the errors. Rama keeps on cutting the heads. The head keeps on coming back. And then Rama is very frustrated. Then Agastya comes and does the Upadesha based on some scripture, which is the essence of Vedanta, the Upadesha of Aditya Hridayam. And Brahmastra, Brahmastra is meant to strike the Hridayam. Do not cut the head, which is an arrow, but in the Hridayam, ignorance is there. By Tatvamasi, Brahmasmi, destroy the ajnana, then the head will stop coming back. So this is another also illustration that distinguishes Vedanta from many other schools or paths. Okay, we don't want to address the fundamental human problem just by doing something mentally or physically, because you may develop a mind capable of experiencing peace and silence and satisfaction. But if we do not address the fundamental cause that produce, suffering to the mind, the suffering comes back once you stop, so suspend your sadhanas. So you need to go into the final teachings of the Upanishads, of the Vedas, in which the true nature of the body-mind sense complex is revealed to be limitless conscious existence, the immortal self. Therefore, the way to go is indirectly. You're going to use jnana to destroy ajnana, and ajnana is going to destroy suffering. Oh, no, I only want to remove suffering. You have to remove ajnana first. But I don't understand this ajnana. It's too philosophical. It's this theory. I need to do something to remove. And I have been doing things that remove the suffering. I go and I listen to one of these Babas of the New Advaita, and somehow my suffering is removed, but only when I'm listening or I'm in the presence. You understand? Why? Because this or that Baba may not be addressing the fundamental cause. Okay? So this is one of the limitations of yoga without knowledge. It removes the problem temporarily, but by not addressing the fundamental cause of suffering, the suffering comes back. Only when you destroy jnana, the heads, which are the mistaking the prakriti nature of the jiva to be its true nature, will not come back again. Therefore, jnana destroys jnana, jnana destroys the mistake, and that means destroys the psychological suffering, which is absolutely common to all human beings. Therefore, Arjuna, Jananat eva moksha, in which yoga, and here Swami says something very strong. That is also confusing notion here and there, because the verse mentions something indicating a sort of yoga here. Let me see. Whatever being moving or stationary is born, know that to be out of the union of Kshetra or Arjuna. The verse does not say anything about in yoga. That's Swamiji is adding that in his commentaries. So in which yoga you're going to address the fundamental problem and destroy the mistake or error? In which yoga? Some people say that during Kali Yuga, it does not work. During Kali Yuga, you need to just be a devotee, be a bhakta, and so on. So, and it has a point, because when the circumstance of the field are too compromised of the Dharma, so the only possibility the individual has, the religious spiritual individual, is to accept everything. And it may be a horrible condition, a very painful condition, because we are crossing the peak of Kali Yuga, let's say. And then when everybody is going through a yuga of total darkness, which are just expression of violations of Dharma, one says the mind does not have enough Viveka Shakti to discriminate Prakriti, the self from the Prakriti, Purusha from the Prakriti. That is the argument, okay? But Swami says we do not accept this argument, because what sort of yoga? Darkness, which is ignorance, is there, and darkness can only be removed by knowledge. In which yoga? In which yoga darkness is going to be dispelled by light? Any yoga, okay? We may say that in some yogas, it's much easier to do Jnana Yoga, because the circumstances of the Dharma are such that the minds are more relaxed to go through these very subtle teachings. But we have some cases, even examples of people who realize, gets God realization, self-realization through a lot of challenge and difficulties here and there. So Swami says we do not accept this. The idea that Kali Yuga, in Kali Yuga, Bhakti is the way to moksha. Now, Bhakti may be a good way to deal with life when circumstances are terrible, because you need to accept it with a certain understanding. But not that attitude of surrendering, to what is going to necessarily produce self-knowledge and moksha, because for self-knowledge and moksha, you need to inquire, you need to apply knowledge, so that the mistaken I am, the suffering body-mind living through a terrible Kali Yuga, can be seen as a mistake, so that one may be able to gain the knowledge I am, the witnessing conscious existence, witnessing this body-mind going through credible crises and adversities, but from the standpoint that I am the seer, the witnessing consciousness, not affected neither by the body-mind experience nor by the condition of the Dharma field. That's why says we do not accept that, because surrender not necessarily is a way to get self-knowledge and moksha, unless we see that surrender, there are strong elements of self-inquiry and knowledge, even if some fragments. Whether it is Dvapara Yuga, Tetra Yuga, here he brings us the real technical terms, because sometimes people say, and I say to myself sometimes, not knowing the technical terms, I say, we in Kali Yuga, let's wait for Satya Yuga, but it seems there is no such a thing as Satya Yuga. Here he presents three yugas, no? To remove jnana, one needs jnana. There is only one remedy in jnana. Krishna talked about sadhanas in these three verses. Verse 28, he who sees the Supreme Lord, who dwells alike in all beings and who is imperishable, that one, only that kind of Jivatma sees the Lord. He who sees the Supreme Lord, the Lord that dwells in all beings. A lot of the time, one of the pointers or instructions we find in Vedanta is to dwell upon the self. Dwell upon the self as I am the self, I am consciousness, dwell upon consciousness as consciousness, dwell upon Brahman as Brahman. So you just, you kind of training to see Brahman everywhere as the indweller in all beings, and understanding and knowing that that is the imperishable supreme being. So the one who comes to have that darshana, that vision of Brahman, who dwells in everything, being the same as it pervades everything, regardless of good and bad, is the one who sees. So this is the ultimate darshana Vedanta proposes to develop the vision of the Lord, of Brahman, as all-pervasive conscious existence, the only reality. So if you want to get self-recognition, self-knowledge, God realization, howsoever we call it, we need to go through a process by which we purify our body, mind, sense complex, so that we develop this darshana, this vision. And this vision is not merely an intellectual vision, it's a field. Okay, so it's like it's what I have been saying lately, is just seeing the Lord permeating everything, dwelling within everything resting the Lord, and so on. And then what is the indication that we are indeed dwelling, we have developed this vision, is that we start feeling more peaceful, more quiet, more appreciative, uh, more sensitive, more grateful. uh. Those are all the symptoms that we are developing this vision, this darshan. Because when you see the Supreme in everything, there is only Brahman, there is only conscious, and you are in contact, you are soaked, you are living within Brahman, your true nature, the true and only reality, and so on. The mind relaxes beyond any kind of doings one can do for mental relaxation, for body relaxation, because you will begin living from the perspective of reality. There is only God, there is only consciousness, and we begin by dwelling upon the Lord, by holding on to these teachings until we begin reaping the fruits of dwelling. This is Nididhyasana. No? So we begin reaping the fruits, and the fruits is a sense of peace and love and gratitude, appreciation. And depending on the prakriti nature of different beings, some people they feel so much love that is not uncommon to some of these devotees who are self-realized, to have tears of love, by just seeing Brahman everywhere, seeing people suffering due to this mistaken prakriti, the mortal prakriti nature as one's true nature, not knowing that everything is the Supreme Lord. So that is the one who sees, that is the vision, and I'm presenting a little hint, is that what are the fruit? The fruit is peace, love, appreciation, gratitude, devotion, balance, equanimity, and strength to deal with cries and difficulties, because even after self-recognition, even the greatest saints, yet they are incarnate and still subject to some of those human natures, old vasanas and so on. But the more the divine somehow sprouts within this vision, this heart, and so on, the more our divine nature is producing the perfume of the rose, which is the love and compassion, empathy, sympathy, and so on for people and beings. Okay? Please, anything? Mark, Lynn, we meet then soon. We meet Monday and Tuesday, Shwara willing. Then we go from there. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namaste.
Thank you, Orlando. Safe travel.
Huh?
Yeah.
Safe Safe travels.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. We meet soon again. Namaste. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks, Alinda. Yeah, have a safe travel. Have a good weekend, and
Thank you.
see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.